G7 leaders have gathered in Germany. Speaking of Europe, let's get right now over to Kayla Tausche. The meetings, Kayla, they began yesterday. They continue on today. And we've got the NATO summit in Madrid. I think it is tomorrow. What are the key top agenda points that may get hammered out today?
Well, certainly they've been talking for the last 2 days here in the Bavarian Alps on matters of infrastructure, of military assistance to Ukraine, and pledging to assist Ukraine in its efforts to counter Russia's invasion for as long as it takes. And here you see the Chancellor of Germany, the host country here at the G7, assembling the world leaders for what's called the family photo. It's happening a little earlier than scheduled because of inclement weather that is on its way here. It's important to note that this group of countries and the larger G20, they really operate with the most urgency during times of crisis. The G20, you'll remember, was formed in the wake of the Asian financial crisis in the late 90s. And then the G8 was elevated to heads of state after the 2008 financial crisis. Those largest economies trying to get together to solve problems and figure out exactly how to make policy across the board that would lift these countries out of recession. Well, here these countries are now on the brink of a recession caused by one of its own former members, Vladimir Putin, whose Russia was part of the G8 until 2014, when members essentially exiled Russia after it annexed Crimea. Chancellor Scholz earlier today did not say that Russia would be uninvited from the G20, which is taking place in Indonesia in November. Certainly, these leaders have suggested that Ukraine should also have a seat at the table if Russia is present. But earlier today, Ukraine's President Zelensky urged leaders to move toward an end to the war by this winter, according to 2 European diplomats speaking to Reuters. Whether that's possible remains to be seen. We've heard top military voices say that perhaps September is the earliest that you could see some sort of negotiated settlement in Ukraine. But then the question is, what happens after that? Can the sanctions genie be put back into the bottle? You've heard the Secretary of State say that sanctions are not designed to be permanent, but there's also a suggestion that perhaps Russia cannot go back to business as usual. So we're trying to get more information about exactly what these leaders have decided on what the world order looks like from here. But certainly it is a crisis moment, and that is exactly the posture in which they're operating. Becky and Brian.
I'm so glad to hear you bring that up, Kayla, because what we've heard over the weekend was a lot of talk about hundreds of billions of dollars going to renewable energy and a lot about the climate, and that's fine. What we did not hear a lot about was how the world may be helping negotiate an end to this brutal war, literally as Russian missiles are hitting apartment buildings in Kyiv. It would seem that these world leaders should be at least a little more upfront about what is being done to end the war. Deal with Putin later. End the Ukrainian people suffering now. We just haven't heard a lot about it.
Well, certainly there is an acknowledgement that as the war nears potentially, hopefully, its final stages, that Vladimir Putin might get more desperate, that is when he would seek to use more rocket fire, more missile fire, and perhaps even the remote possibility of some sort of nuclear weaponry. That is the worst case scenario that these leaders have been discussing behind the scenes, that the Biden administration has been discussing behind the scenes. But you're right, Brian, there is a discussion about some sort of negotiated outcome. But in the end, all of these Western leaders have said it comes down to what Ukraine and Russia are able to decide on their own. The administration was asked specifically in multiple briefings in recent days whether the U.S. would be pushing Ukraine to cede some of its territory, to just say, all right, if that's what Russia needs, that's what we'll give it. The U.S. has said that it's not urging Ukraine one way or another, that ultimately it needs to be Ukraine's position that ends up getting that deal. And whether that deal is possible still remains to be seen.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.